I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. Tens of thousands of anti-government protesters are demonstrating on the streets of Tel Aviv in one of Israel's biggest street protests in years. More than 1,000 police are being deployed and some key roads have been closed in a third weekend of demonstrations. The protesters are angry about the new right-wing government's plans to limit the powers of the judiciary, claiming this could destroy democracy in Israel. This student is among them.
I'm protesting because the democracy in Israel is at stake. I'm a student, a law student, and once I heard about the reform in the legal system, I was shocked. I can't believe that the changes they want to make will make such a difference in the democracy in Israel. It's basically a change in the regime, and we as a student protest are against it and want to save our democracy.
Brazil's army commander, General Julio César de Arruda, has been fired 2 weeks after supporters of the former president, Jair Bolsonaro, stormed government buildings. He'll be replaced by a figure close to the current leader, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Will Grant reports.
General de Arruda had been put into his role in the final days of Jair Bolsonaro's presidency, less than 2 weeks before the insurrection in the capital, Brasilia, in which extremist Bolsonaro supporters sieged several government buildings, including the Planalto presidential office, the Congress and the Supreme Court. President Lula now openly distrusts parts of the military and says he suspects there had been collusion in the insurrection by, as he put it, people in the armed forces.
The Canadian government says it'll help facilitate talks aimed at ending years of separatist conflict in Cameroon. More than 1 million people have been forced to flee their homes in the country's English-speaking northwest and southwest regions. Will Ross reports.
Finally, after more than 5 years of fighting in Cameroon, it's possible that all sides are in agreement that this war can't be won through the guns. Switzerland tried to mediate, but the talks broke down and President Paul Biya's government appeared to be in favour of the military option. Now Canada is going to try. Its Foreign Minister, Mélanie Joly, said the government in Yaoundé and 6 different groups representing the separatists had agreed to start a peace process. With so many different forces to please and 2 splinter groups not yet on board, it won't be easy.
State media in Burkina Faso say the military government has demanded the departure of the 400 French troops stationed in the country. The official news agency said that the government had, in its words, denounced the agreement under which they are based 3 there and had been given them 1 month to leave Burkinabe territory. It said the French were accused of doing too little to combat Islamist militant attacks, their reason for being in the country. Jihadist extremism has spread across the region from Mali in the past decade. You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. Sweden has insisted its values its ties with Turkey after Ankara cancelled a visit by the Swedish Defence Minister. It was called off ahead of an anti-Muslim demonstration in Stockholm by a far-right politician outside the Turkish embassy. The Turkish and Swedish governments both strongly criticised the incident, which saw a copy of the Quran burned. A memorial service has been held in Ukraine for the former Interior Minister Denis Monastyrsky and 6 other senior officials who were killed in a helicopter crash earlier this week. The 7 coffins lay draped in the blue and yellow flags of Ukraine at a cultural centre in Kiev. A tearful President Zelensky was among those paying their respects.
It's painful to think about it. It's painful to talk about it now. Denis was a professional, genuine person, exactly what the Minister of Internal Affairs should be. Every day we lose people whom we will always remember and regret that we cannot bring back.
Officials are still investigating the cause of the crash. A senior advisor to India's Information Ministry says it's ordered YouTube and Twitter to block links to a BBC documentary about the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Kanchan Gupta described the film as hateful propaganda. The documentary, titled India, the Modi Question, examines Mr Modi's failure to prevent deadly religious riots in Gujarat when he was Chief Minister of the state in 2002. More than 1,000 people, mostly Muslims, died in the violence. The BBC said the film was rigorously researched. Peru has closed the famous Inca citadel of Machu Picchu because of anti-government protests. Hundreds of tourists have been left stranded. Peru's Ministry of Culture said the closure and the Inca Trails network had been ordered to keep visitors safe because of the social situation. It said tourists would be given the assistance they need. BBC News.